Hey everyone, and welcome to our Facebook Live number 12. And the title is English Lessons You Will Not Learn at School. And as you can see, I am not here alone. I've got Anthony Fitzgerald with me. And why is he here with me? So first of all, he has traveled to more than 50, 80 countries.
Something like that, yeah. Stop counting.
And he has lived in 7, you said.
Yeah.
And as you can hear, he is very English.
Yes, I am, with Irish background, but no, I was educated in England, so I'm pretty English, I suppose. Yeah.
And so he may be, and because of his experience, he may be one of the best ones to tell us something about what I cannot teach in my classes. You know, when you learn English, and you can tell us if you agree, when you learn English or any other language, you need to deal with the grammar, vocabulary, all these kind of skills. But there is one thing, and especially in England, because we live in England, that English students ask me, Beata, and we don't get the English. We don't get maybe their humor, or we don't get when they speak to each other. What is it about? So that's why I have asked Anthony if he could come and maybe talk to us a little bit that what makes English the English, and what is it we don't understand? What is it we maybe should know about you? Because there are so many things we find confusing or strange or weird about the English.
Yeah.
And you can ask, if you have any questions, feel free to chat or, to ask.
Yeah, it's a funny subject. I mean, I know that a lot of Americans, for instance, sometimes don't understand what we're saying. We're speaking the same language, ostensibly. But we do have, if you like, a language underneath. And it's not conscious. And it's nothing too complicated. It's based on a need not to confront, not to be confrontational, not to be aggressive. Underneath, we're actually really quite an aggressive people. We're quite a warlike people, as
really? Well, we say English.
Well, history has shown that. But of course, on the continent of Europe, particularly, we're regarded as being very polite.
What do you mean by aggressive? Like, what do you mean warlike people?
Well, if you look at what we did, we went out and ran all over Africa and India, and with Drake to the Spanish Main, and with Raleigh and the Spanish galleons, and we were pirates at one stage. I mean, we weren't blameless, and we have Viking blood in us. Mm-hmm. They were a warlike people. But a lot of our language is based on, I think it's based on two things. One is a sense of fairness. We really respect people being fair to each other. And I could illustrate that a bit later. But and the other is not wishing to avert offence, too much direct offence. But if you wanted to tell somebody you thought they were a bit of an idiot, you'd cloud it a bit,
You cloud it a lot,
Yeah, I mean, the message would still get across.
Yeah, but you don't speak like that, Anthony. There is one thing, and I don't know if you agree, that we say that you are a bit like two-faced. You don't.
I can understand that accusation, because we use understatement a lot. We don't like people exaggerating, except for humor. Sometimes exaggeration can be used, but by and large, we don't like people saying, overclaiming and being. We like understatement, and we like self-depreciation. In other words, you don't boast about things. That immediately turns an English person off. You know, if you start
Yeah.
overclaiming, and we've inherited some dreadful words from America like awesome, which we could really do without, and it's used far too frequently.
Yes, but don't you think it's awesome if people use it? I know it's not very Ireland.
I suppose I'm of the generation that finds it awful to be using words like that, because it's sort of being used out of context. It is not something that fills you with awe, you know, just because you do something mildly successful, you know. That it's exaggeration. That's it's getting out of. Yeah, it's to do with overclaiming, with being credible. You know, that if you don't exaggerate, if you don't say too much about yourself, you're more likely to be believed. And if you disagree with somebody, you can disagree with somebody without offending them, but letting them know that you've disagreed.
This
You're
is
not
very
you're not being
English.
insincere.
Yes.
You're being honest, but it does require the other person to understand that language, and that is difficult. It is difficult, and for anybody who's not English, I really appreciate that. That's a hard thing to understand.
Yes, and that's what you said, that English people do not offend. You don't. The true okay, we are talking here, and you may have different opinion or different experience, but we are talking about what I always say, the best of English behavior and manners and reactions. So I don't know, something is going on with this, I don't know. It's a firework or something. So you don't like to offend. You will always.
Yeah, actually, I think you've raised a very good point. This doesn't apply to the entire population. I mean, we're 68 million people.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a huge proportion of people who are pretty blunt, and and they don't care about this hidden language. But if you're talking about the way that we'd like you to behave and that we would be proud of in ourselves, it's a style that perhaps might be considered by a lot of people that's out of date, but it certainly makes for an easier life. It certainly makes for a more comfortable life. It makes for less confrontation. It can be very subtle. It can be, I mean, the use of sarcasm. I mean, there's a couple of wonderful examples, like somebody shows you a report and you say to them, that's not bad. Now, what you're actually saying is that that's good, but you don't want to go overboard. But the person listening to you who's not English thinks that it's poor.
Well, can I actually say something? That's another reason, because it's so complex, isn't it? This whole thing about being English, understanding English, understanding.
It can only come from experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we have written a little book, which will be available on Amazon in audio and Kindle version soon. So we will give you the links. But I think you wanted to read from there, you know, the.
Yeah, I mean, there's another couple of examples. Somebody gives you a report or something to comment on, or a book, and the English person would look at it and say, I'd suggest, and go on to make a suggestion. And what he's actually saying is do it or be prepared to justify yourself. And the European might think about the idea, but do what you like. It's a completely different thought. And Englishmen might say, I was a bit disappointed that you did it that way. What he really means is, I'm annoyed about what you've done. And what the person who doesn't understand English thinks, it doesn't really matter. Now, there's totally different meanings there. If you speak this third language, as it were. So it's three-dimensional language. You get to understand it. And really that's only from experience. And maybe the little book we've written will point you in the right direction. That's all it can hope to do.
Yeah, that's what you said, Anthony, because people, if you don't know about these things, and when I first came to England, I was 18, what did I know about English? Nothing. And I always thought that you have dry sense of humor. Yes, that your language is super polite. You always say thank you and please, and you apologize even if it's not your fault. Yes, these kind of things.
Yeah.
So I knew all the best things, that you are always calm, you don't show your emotions, fine. But then there were these other things when I thought your humor is dry. Sarcasm, you laugh at yourself, you laugh at other people, you tease other people. Well, actually, there is so much more behind this. Or you don't want to, some people will say you are two-faced. English people are two-faced. They will never tell you the truth in your face directly. Now, I understand why. But people will think that it's not fair, you are not genuine.
We're not being dishonest.
Yes.
It's just, it's another way of communicating that is not going to make you angry or hurt. Yeah. It's going to get the point across. And that language is another language you've got to learn, and you can only learn it by conversation. And as I say, the book is just a pointer, but it might help. It might speed up the process of learning that language. And I mean, we could write a book of 500 pages, frankly, about this. This is only a very short little book,
yes.
But it's a pointer.
Exactly.
And it's a lot of fun to learn that language. There's a lot of humor in it. Humor is so important. Everything, I mean, the self-depreciation part, it leads to humor. And we try to entertain each other in conversation. You don't just have a conversation with somebody. It's not, I think this and you think that. It's also taking into account the humanity of the other person, that they also need to be entertained and they should entertain you back. And even just an exchange about the weather, about which we never stop talking. As we live on a small island in the middle of the Atlantic, our weather changes every couple of hours. So we've got a lot to talk about, and it's a great time filler. But even that, talking about the weather, you can make it funny,
Yes, you do.
The thing is to get a smile and to ease the path of conversation, if you like, just to make it a little easier. It may come across as two-faced. It's not intended as two-faced.
Yes. And as you said, there are all these things behind this. So when you understand the English, when you understand why they behave in such a way, why they do things they do, it's amazing. You don't understand then the English as Anthony really, I have to use this kind of English when he says it's interesting, don't use awesome, but they are amazing people. Amazing people.
Steady on.
Tolerant,
no, that's the sort of
friendly.
Thing
yes,
that's the sort of praise we really can't take.
Yes, you can clearly see.
We find that very uncomfortable.
Yes.
To be praised directly to our faces.
This is a good example of being
quite a good
English
example, actually.
and a foreigner, and how, if you learn the language and you want to create this bilingual identity, I always say, take the best out of English and out of your best behavior and just, merge it together, forge it together into this new identity. And some people will disagree. Yes, they will, because they will say, okay, we don't agree. English people are racist. English people are this. True, there are some. But I always say it's what you believe. And if you believe these things about the English people, then you will find those kind of people. But if you believe English people are polite, classy, friendly, tolerant, well-mannered, great sense of humor, all these things, I believe you will find these kind of people.
Yes, and again, it's not universal. You know, you don't want to be at the wrong end of the Liverpool football ground, you know, when they're losing a match. They don't behave like that, and the language is extremely clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're talking about aspirational English. I
Yes.
mean, how you'd want to get on professionally, socially, how you'd want to be accepted as a friend, how you make friends, and it's based on politeness and it's not two-faced. I can understand how Europeans might think it was two-faced, and I'm sure there are elements of it that are, but by and large, it's well intended. It's to avoid the confrontation that we know could happen
Yeah.
if we didn't use it,
Yes.
and it really comes with living with it, with the language, and maybe getting a few tips from lots of books. I mean, our little book is
Maybe just the beginning. Yeah, as you said,
Yeah.
the pointer. We can go on forever. This is such an interesting and complex subject, and there can be so many opinions, and you meet a different person with different opinion. But the thing is, it makes you think that when you learn the language, it's not just the grammar, vocabulary, you know, and listening and speaking, all these skills. There's more to it. You need to understand the people who speak the language, their culture, their behavior, their reactions, in order to, as we say, and I really like, if I can, I would like to read a quote from the book, that it is a sincere wish that you will master the English language and speak it with confidence and ease. That one day you may choose to make England your adopted country, and that you understand and even like the English people and be liked in return. We are both proud to call this country home.
absolutely.
So thank you for watching. You can always let us know what you think, your opinion, your reactions, how you see the English, whether you agree or disagree. But most of all, we should just know that we, even with the language and with our behavior, we should always aim for the best.
Yes,
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
And thank you, Anthony, for coming in.